Hi, everybody. My name is Rob Martin. I work with Lympha Press. And if you're not familiar, Lympha Press is a group that actually handles pneumatic compression devices in the United States and actually all across the world. But we are a very kind of unique product that helps patients with lymphedema and also lipedema. So today we're actually kind of introducing you to a new podcast that Lympha Press is going to be releasing. And the person joining me today is actually a good friend of mine that I've had the pleasure of working with over the years, Brenda Viola. Brenda is actually our vice president of marketing and communications for Lympha Press in the USA, and a huge advocate for not only lymphedema but also lipedema. So thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, we're kind of turning the tables because usually you're this one, the one on this side of the conversation. So
I know this is so much fun, Rob. Thank you for agreeing to host our episode 0, because we have all of this content that we've created on our YouTube channels. And we thought, wow, we want to make it available in yet another format so that our patients, prescribers, payers can learn more about what Lympha Press can provide.
Right. And, so I think it's a great opportunity to be able to get this out there to people in, different little facets in different ways. So obviously in episode 0, if people aren't familiar, usually this is kind of like a preview of things to come as far as this show. But, so why, so we know why we're launching this podcast and why we're doing this. But, you mentioned just a moment ago, you have so much content already ready to be kind of released out there. So how did that initially start for you as far as like that kind of content that you were building and starting to record?
I'm so glad you asked that. And it was really one of the silver linings of COVID. We all started doing Zoom. Everybody became comfortable with it. And I became very curious. I wanted to know what our patients thought. Our sales reps go and do in-services with referral sources every day. But what are really the results that patients are having? And what are the stories that they could tell? And in telling their stories, I found my heartstrings tugged. And I also found that in sharing those stories, people were being inspired and gaining hope. And so what happened over the last year was that we created this whole community of people engaged about their particular disease conditions, lipedema first, and then lymphedema. And we started to build on that community. And one interview led to the next, to the next, to the next, till we have 2 whole channels populated with really good stuff.
That's fantastic. And I think honestly, you kind of hit the nail on the head by saying hope. I think people hearing about these things, a lot of times, they question, and I think especially with lymphedema and lipedema, especially in the US, people, don't realize how undiagnosed this is, and people question what's going on for them in their body. And hearing other people's stories, again, as you mentioned, it's inspiring, but it also gives them hope to start going out, start asking questions of their physicians and such. So I really hope that people, as they listen to the content that's going to be released, will be able to take this message to heart and feel like they have a path forward. So
Yes, and that they have advocates in Lympha
mhm,
Press.
right.
Lympha Press offers the most advanced pneumatic compression therapy systems in the world. We are in 37 countries. We have been the leader in pneumatic compression. But then on the other side of it, aside from providing this revolutionary, cutting edge technology that offers effective therapy, we have a team of people who genuinely care. For every patient that emails me after an interview or a roundtable and says, how can you help me? It thrills our heart to be able to work with them, work with their insurance companies, work with their doctors, and get them the help that they need. So it really is exciting that we're not just a company that's offering you a pump and then walking away. We'll walk this journey with you and stay engaged with you throughout the entire process to, again, cheer you on.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the kind of greatest parts about working with this organization. It's, that's really a huge part of it, because we do really get a chance to work with those patients and kind of enter this moment in their lives and help give them some guidance. But it's not just this kind of business transaction. We really do kind of practice what we preach as far as the idea of kind of really connecting to those patients. And I think that's a really great. So, you mentioned here also, like I said, the one-on-one interviews. So also, we have an education series that's going to be part of this as well. Can you expand upon that a little bit as far as what that's going to discuss?
Sure. And yes, there are really 4 different categories of content that you're going to find in the Lympha Press podcast, which is free flowing conversation. That's our sort of working title for this. So we have the one-on-ones, like I mentioned, and we can get more into that later. We have roundtables for both lipedema and lymphedema. And you just mentioned the education series. This is where we take medical professionals who are thought leaders, and we give them a platform and say, what are you passionate about? What do you think your colleagues or others in the lymphedema or lipedema worlds need to know? What's not being talked about that you want to create buzz around or generate interest around? So we've worked with people like Dr. Stanley Roxon, Dr. Karen Herbst, Dr. Lindy McCutchinson, Dr. Andrea Brennan. I know I'm name dropping here. Dr. Jay Granzo, Dr. Chen at the Cleveland Clinic. It will not end. Every month or so, we put together a webinar series that you can register for if you are one of our medical professionals. And then we turn that content into a podcast as well. So we've got a boatload of really interesting shows that you could download. And I will just tell you, one of the most recent ones that I highlight for our listeners is Dr. Karen Herbst just did a groundbreaking presentation on mind, body, and the matrix, the connection between your mind and your body and how it affects lipedema, how stress and inflammation affect lipedema, and even the mental health components that play into this, as you said, underdiagnosed disease that actually affects about 11% of the female population. So Mind, Body, and the Matrix by Dr. Herbst is definitely on the hit list of podcasts you're going to want to listen to first when it comes to the education series. And we're going to keep populating these every month. There's going to be new content, so it'll never get stale or boring.
That's fantastic. Do you guys know at this point in time, when this is going to be releasing? Is it new episodes weekly, bi-weekly?
Well, we hit our wall in June when we did actually 4 different episodes during the month of June for Lipedema Awareness Month. And we want to find the balance between regularly providing great content, but not also overloading our listeners with too much. Sometimes if you feel, I know when I go to binge watch a series, if they've got already 7 years of episodes, I'm like, oh, no, that's just too much. I can't catch up on all that. So we want to make it manageable. At a minimum, at least 1 new education series a month will be added to our podcast content.
Well, that's fantastic. And, ultimately, how are going to be people able to find out more about the show when it launches?
Yeah, so you can always go to lymphapress.com. Also follow us on our social channels at lympha_press on Instagram, where we've seen the greatest amount of interest in the most recent year. I think people are gravitating toward that platform, as well as on Facebook, of course, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and then adding this podcast to our communication endeavors. You can't miss us. We are everywhere. You will find us. And if you can't find us, email me, Viola, Viola, at lymphapress.com.
And actually, a good question for you, because you did mention patient roundtables. If people are interested in joining those in the future, is that a great place for them to communicate to? Is just email you direct?
Yeah, well, you can go right to our website. Now, we do 2 roundtables a month, and these were born from COVID, where it was like, people are craving connection. How can we meet that need for our patients and the medical professionals that we serve? So, and I will also tell you a little bit of a backstory too, Rob. We knew that the Optimal Plus was indicated by the FDA for the treatment of lipedema. It was actually the first device of its kind cleared in the United States to treat lipedema. And as the marketing person, it's my job to market it. But truthfully, I felt like I need to know what kind of results patients can expect. I didn't want to market something without knowing how it would impact this community and knowing how many lipedema patients often have their hopes dashed. And we didn't want to get their hopes up if we couldn't deliver. So we spent several months trialing the Optimal Plus with key lipedema influencers. And what we heard were reports of reduced pain, increased mobility, fat pads disappearing. And when I started to talk to these influencers and these women, and they are 99% women who have lipedema, they're so awesome. They're engaging, they're fun, they're insightful, they are brave, and they have such great stories that my idea was, why don't we get them all together in one quote unquote Zoom room and talk about lipedema, not just about Lympha Press, although it's always a part of the conversation, but how do you manage it? How do you manage it mentally? What's dating like when you have lipedema? What's it like to be judged by the world for how you look? And you can't change the fact that no matter how much you exercise or diet, the scale doesn't change. And you have this disproportionate fat. It's really invigorating conversation. So we did the first one in June 2020. And now it is a monthly event on the third Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. You can go to lymphedema.com, go to lipedema video library, and it's a button right there where you can register. You can actually register for the rest of the roundtables till the end of the year right there on that portal. And every now and then we have special guests. I was gobsmacked, Rob, when we were going live and all of a sudden Dr. Karen Herbst showed up. She wanted to be on the panel, and we certainly welcomed her. For many of the women in the lipedema population, she is a beacon of light. She has devoted her research. She's amazing. And that she would join us at the roundtable. Why? Because she cares. She wants to connect with the very patients that she serves. And Dr. Lindy McCutchinson has been at the table. Linda Ann Kahn, who has an interesting take on lipedema, dealing with aromatherapy, as well as other more traditional methods of managing the condition. Dr. Jamie Schwartz, who is a renowned surgeon, who are Pale Ginger Pear, who has 90,000 Instagram followers. That's her doctor. And he showed up at the round table one night. So you never know who's going to show up, but you can count on the fact that every third Wednesday of the month, we're going to be there, and it's going to be awesome and inspiring and educational. And you do have to register first in advance. If you want to be at the live quote unquote broadcast, the live webinar, you have to register first. So go to our website and do that. So that is the lipedema roundtable. Then our national sales manager said, you know, Brenda, you're doing a lipedema roundtable, but we've been serving lymphedema patients for over 25 years. Actually, Lympha Press has been serving lymphedema patients for over 40 years.
Right.
How come you're not doing a lymphedema roundtable? Well, the lights went off, Rob, and I said, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. And we had some wonderful panelists right away that we had at the ready. For one, Cam Ayala, who is a celebrity, well known for his stint on The Bachelorette and Bachelor in Paradise, but he is a primary lymphedema patient, a wonderful spokesperson, and a Lympha Press compression therapy consultant. So he's on the panel along with Mary Castleberg, also a Lympha Press representative who has primary lymphedema. Kelly Bell, who is remarkable.
He is one of the most inspiring people I've ever met in my life.
I love Kelly Bell. His handle is Veteran Fighting Lymphedema, and he is fighting and winning thanks to Lympha Press. There is this photo of him with, I think it's 12 gallons of water in front of him, removed because he regularly uses his Lympha Press. It's awesome. So those are just a few of those panels. Now, the lymphedema patient roundtable is on the second Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And similarly, you can go to lymphedema.com, follow the lymphedema prompt, lymphedema video library, and there's a button right there, register for the roundtable. We also encourage your questions. We answer them live. Betty Westbrook, CLT, who has started and runs Camp Watch Me for pediatric lymphedema patients, is generally on the panel as well, and she offers medical expertise. So it's a mix of medical and patient anecdotal information. We always say we're not doctors and we're not going to diagnose anything or try to treat you, but we sure will encourage you at the roundtables.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds fantastic. So I think between obviously all the great ways that people can get connected with not only Lympha Press, but other people in the community to find hope and find, a place to kind of just connect and find kind of a newfound family around what they're going through in their lives. I think it's just really incredible. Plus, again, we'll have the podcast coming out, very, very soon. So again, there's one-on-one interviews, the education series, hearing some of these, existing, patient roundtables, both for lipedema and for lymphedema. So it sounds like there's just a ton of great things on the horizon.
Oh,
So
there are. And I want to also direct you. I mentioned the educational series and Dr. Herbst's recent installment, which was Mind, Body, and the Matrix. But there's an interview I just did, a one-on-one interview with a woman named Kelly Maynard. You are going to want to listen to this interview because she has had her Lympha Press Optimal Plus for just 2 months. Now, prior to that, for 7 years, she was doing a lot of conservative measures and not seeing any real measurable improvement in her condition. After just 2 weeks with the Lympha Press Optimal Plus, she reduced many inches. Well, now we're at 2 months. She has reduced 30 inches, which has dramatically increased her mobility and boosted her morale. She's lost 20 pounds of fluid. She says that the constant ache that she had in her body is gone. She can wear her wedding ring again. She's sweating again. Now that's important because when your lymphatic system is blocked, you don't sweat.
mhm.
Now she's able to release those toxins from her body. So Kelly Maynard's interview rocks. If you want to start anywhere, folks, that's a great episode to start with after you, of course, finish episode 0.
Well, that's fantastic. And I'm honestly myself really excited to dive in and be able to hear a lot of these as well. Well, like I said, when we launched, you're going to be kind of taking this spot here and kind of guiding everybody through this content coming out. But Brenda, thank you so much for being such an amazing advocate for both Lympha Press, but also the lipedema and lymphedema communities and helping spearhead all these wonderful things. So thank you so much again for joining us. And we can't wait for all of you to be able to check out the Lympha Press podcast very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you have a wonderful week.